I grew up in rural New York, in a shack full of holes. Holes in the floor, holes in the walls, holes chock full of mice and rats. Despite that, as a kid, I appreciated animals. Bugs, spiders, lizards, cats, dogs, cows, you name it. I had a lot of trouble in school because I was very much focused on fantasy and creativity. I struggled with anything more logical or memory-based. In time, I figured out that I have dyscalculia, in my case, a mild inability to make sense of numbers and math. I started writing and drawing at an early age, scribbling out entire comic books and writing murder mysteries that disturbed my teachers. Eventually, my family moved to North Carolina, where, as a northerner, I was verbally and physically assaulted, mainly because I didn't adhere to the strict line between white and non-white students. Playing basketball with black students meant that all of your books and papers were thrown under a running shower by white students later on. Shaking hands with a Mexican student immediately led to being snuck up on and put in a headlock by a white student until I blacked out. In my teen years, I found a kitten with a severe facial deformity and tried to raise it. Unfortunately, it wasn't something I could fix, and when it died, I wondered why God couldn't have just listened to my prayers regarding something so trivial. Surely it wouldn't matter if he just did what I wanted. That's when I realized, oh, right, there's no God. Okay, you know what? Actually, that explains a lot of shit. Later on, I volunteered at an aquarium, one of many ecologically minded places I had volunteered, and while there, I swore off of eating meat because I could see how animals had what could be described as personalities. It's a vow that I've kept for 26 years. I used to date a girl with a beach house who realized late in our relationship that she was gay. This happened when she met a girl who did more for her than any guy she had ever known. After that, the three of us stayed at that beach house. I dated a girl who eventually revealed to me that she had been abused as a child, and that because of this, she was questioning how much of her life decisions had really been of her own choice versus what she assumed she was supposed to be doing for others. We parted ways amicably, and many years later, I dropped her a letter, reconnecting and asking how she was doing, just to make sure that things were turning out well for her after what she had been through. I had a relationship with someone who was transitioning to male, including gradually introducing me to what pronouns he liked and what he did or didn't want out of our relationship. We separated when I no longer fit into that progress, and remained friends for months afterward, until he moved out of state and found a new place to be himself. Hey, by the way, don't worry. You don't know who any of these people are, and you never will, because except for this video, I don't really care to talk about my personal life with strangers. Validation is nice and all, but if you're seeking it from random people on the internet, it's not going to turn out healthy whether you get it or not. I've done animal rescue for decades, and I've donated to shelters for the homeless and battered women when I had something of value to share. Mostly these were items related to jobs I had at the time, but don't tell the companies, okay? All the while, I've been a bleeding heart liberal who, surprise, has fallen onto the path of volunteerism again and again. Now my main focus is taking care of an elderly parent who's wheelchair-bound. A majority of money I earn goes toward this, as well as time and effort. I don't miss having a personal life because at the end of the day, I still have what was always with me: the ability to create and to have fun doing it. My name is Slimebeast, and people call me a Christian Republican racist, sexist, misogynistic, homophobic chud because their favorite YouTuber tried to fuck with me and lost. Alright, now let's listen to three prattling assholes brainlessly regurgitating false talking points while they make up entirely new ones. So there's this thing called the Creepypasta Book Club. Very inspired title. And it's on episode 2, very early in the franchise, I guess, and they wanted to, I guess, make a big splash, make a big impact, by doing an entire episode discussing how I'm racist and sexist and all these other things. Under the guise of reviewing Abandoned by Disney. Now, this is not a new thing. This is what people have done in the past. Again, not a new idea, not a good idea. But then again, uncreative people gonna be uncreative. So, yeah, another podcast with the pretense of being a review show that is really just going to push a narrative. let's hear what these three airheads have to say.
Thank you for joining us tonight in the Creepypasta Book Club. The podcast where we read, analyze, and discuss significant creepypastas, no-sleeps, and web horror flash fiction. We are your hosts, Jonah
and Wednesday.
And today we are discussing Slime Beasts Abandoned by Disney. And for today's episode, we are introducing our episode co-host, Michael. Michael, say hi.
Hi.
Well, hey there, nice to meet you. You sound like a group of really nice kids. Not at all like two of you are going to go out into the woods and stab the third. Not at all. But yeah, I apologize for what is about to happen to you in this video, but to be honest, you kind of brought it on yourself by, first of all, saying what you've said, secondly, refusing to acknowledge it when I contacted you, and just replying with, I have a boyfriend, which was super hilarious, and not completing the trifecta of unoriginal bullshit.
Abandoned by Disney is the story of an urbexer who decides to explore the site of an obscure abandoned Disney resort in the Emerald Isle in North Carolina.
Near Emerald Isle in North Carolina. God, nobody reads the story.
Well, okay, kind of the elephant in the room with anything written by Slime Beast, right, is that he is a massive prick.
And there we have it. Okay, this person has never spoken to me, has never interacted with me in any way, doesn't know anything about me other than what they've heard from other people, and that's just good enough, because these people do not want to do any research and actually find out what's going on. So I would say to this person and everyone like them, educate yourself. Because to me, a massive prick would be somebody who talks about someone like this without knowing anything about them or who they are. That would be a massive prick to me.
Like a very bad person.
Again, this person doesn't know anything about me, making them the, quote, very bad person. You are, factually, a bad person. Just factually. Because of what you've done in your own recording. Alone. Just that alone makes you a bad person.
Yeah, Abandoned by Disney by Slime Beast, noted internet name checker and online chud.
Racist.
Let me just lay this out for you because you'll never experience this, clearly. When you have something that people care about and that people make fan works about and that people record readings of and things like that, one of the ways you find that is by searching for it. So if I go on DeviantArt and I search for Abandoned by Disney, and I find Abandoned by Disney artwork that I then post on Discord and share with people, how would I find that unless I was looking for it? Because people, you may think that people send me this stuff, all the time. Sometimes, yes, but not a lot. So, I like to look things up. I like to see what's going on. I like to see if people are narrating my stories and putting monetization on it, things like that. So, I may be a quote-unquote name checker, but that's because I have a quote-unquote name. I know that sounds like I'm talking down to you, but all you've done in your entire podcast is talk down, so... Also, I would address the fact that you drop in the words chud and racist out of nowhere for no reason with nothing to back it up and nothing you could ever point to, because you don't in your entire fucking podcast. I would address that, but I have a feeling we're going to get to that later, so... I just want to make that main point.
Yeah, so find our podcast, Slime Beast, and boost our algorithms through controversy.
There is no amount of controversy that will cause people to enjoy listening to your podcast, so good luck with that. But thanks for telling me exactly why you're doing this.
I'm going to read off Slime Beast's Patreon membership level titles. I think that might sum up anything we could probably say ever. There's Special Cornflake, Echo Chambermaid, and Safe Space Cadet.
Yeah, so those are the sort of Patreon tiers that he has available for people to sign up for.
They all include Discord benefits. Really fancy.
Well, that sounds extremely neutral.
First of all, you're an idiot for saying that somebody has to be neutral about anything. Second of all, those titles are Discord benefit titles, like you said, And the reason they're named as such is because when I created them, somebody was calling my Discord a safe space for special snowflakes and saying it was an echo chamber. So the titles are literally making fun of somebody who was calling my Discord a safe space. You absolute fucking idiots.
This guy is sort of known to have been in, like, the inner circles of several other sort of, like, big-name horror figures.
No, that's never been true. I've only dealt really with the people from Midnight Marinara, and by extent, the fear fiction stuff. Literally the only people I've spoken with, and I wouldn't call myself in their inner circle, because I basically was like a guest on the podcast of, the first people, and I'm on a podcast with 2 other people in the fear fiction thing. So, like, I have never, at any point, been in the inner circle of fucking anyone in the horror community. Where does this come from? I mean, I know where it comes from. I shouldn't even ask. It comes from you lying to make your story sound more plausible.
And completely fell out with all of them due to being such a cunt.
Alright, so I'm going to give you guys a little tip here. Whenever you hear somebody making up bullshit on the fly like this, and make no mistake, you can literally hear this person doing that when they go, and, like that type of thing of what can I think of next. Whenever you hear somebody making up shit like this, ask for specifics. It's just that simple. So when this person says, Slimebeast fell out with all of these horror groups that he was a part of, which is none, you would just say to this person, what groups? Fell out with what groups? Oh, Nightmind. How? How did he fall out for being such a cunt? Well, Nightmind made a blog post about him out of nowhere. Oh, so that's Slimebeast being a cunt. Okay. But yeah, okay, so apparently I have been a cunt in the past, but hey, I'll get past that. What's your excuse for being a cunt in the present?
That they could not handle being around him, because of his bad politics and attitude.
Oh god, because of his politics and bad attitude. Fucking shit. Okay, specifics. Who and what politics? What politics? Anytime you're ready.
I know, like, he used to be in sort of, like, the circle with, like, Nightmind and Pan Pizza and all of them.
Alright, let me take your brain out of high school for a moment, mean girl, and just tell you that just because I know Nightmind in passing does not mean I am part of his circle. I am not part of his crew, his clique, his squad. Yes, Queen, I am not, in fact, part of his squad. I appeared on a podcast with Nightmind maybe twice as a guest on a recorded podcast, and I think maybe a live stream. That is not being in somebody's circle. That is not even being somebody's friend. That is being at most an acquaintance in passing. He and I never spoke beyond that. We just were on podcasts together. So the idea that I'm in some circle with these people is such a, like, infantile way of thinking that if you know somebody, you're, like, on their team and in their group and in their social circle. And it really betrays your low level of thought that you put into this whole thing. I don't know who Pan Pizza is. I'm sorry, no offense to Pan Pizza. I'm sure they're probably a fine person. No idea who that is.
And he also used to be sort of, I think he was originally posting on Bog Leech's forums and stuff, like when he was
Yeah, they're like palsy. They like work together in like your online and collaborating way. It's hard to tell like the level of friendship people have when you're not like in the inner friend group. So like it's just like speculation of stuff.
Yeah, this is all speculation with no basis in any actual knowledge. God, guys, they're so close to self-aware. It's agonizing.
Bog like publicly disavowed him after Gamergate, right?
Yeah.
That's a funny way of saying that we had a disagreement on Tumblr once. How over-dramatic.
They're part of like the circle of like people who would ever blog from each other and talk to each other online.
Nope, Bogleach was the only person from that quote-unquote group that I had added on Tumblr, and the only person I spoke to on Tumblr. Didn't talk to any of those other people, didn't have them, wasn't following them, wasn't any part of a group with them. Some of them probably followed me, but I couldn't tell you who. Because I don't know who they are.
And then he like started posting this really strange Gamergate stuff, and everyone was like, hey dude, you good?
Alright, keep in mind everybody, that this is right when Gamergate was starting. This was before anybody was getting harassed. This was before anybody was getting attacked. This was all about a group of game journalists doing some stuff, and pretty much nobody knew what to think about it, and everybody was falling into different camps, different sides. As that progressed, of course, even early on, there started being harassment, there started being, different terrible elements. So, on Tumblr, I posted things like, gee, nobody's really focusing on the fact that a bunch of men in positions of power traded things for sex. And nobody really cared about that. I thought that was kind of odd. Because in the mix, we lost the fact that, again, a group of men in positions of power were using that position of power over a woman to get sex out of her. Nobody looked at it that way. Well, maybe some people. But those people got shouted down, like I did. Because what happened was anything you dared to say would get screamed into the dirt. And that is exactly what happened with this. People weren't like, hey, you good? People were like, you pig monster chauvinist piece of shit, Republican, alt-right, Christian, everything that you guys are doing on this podcast. Basically reacting like a bunch of lunatics. Another thing that Bogleach took exception to, and that people went wild about, was I posted a joke on Tumblr where I said, it's not fair that men have to beg for nudes when women get free dick pics without even asking. Wah, wah, wah. You could say it's a stupid joke, you could say it's a bad joke, in poor taste, whatever, but obviously a stupid fucking joke. We all know that nobody wants unsolicited dick pics. Nobody of any stripe wants unsolicited dick pics from a bunch of, fat neckbeard losers. But, so yeah, obviously a joke, but these people were like, how dare you even joke about the plight of the modern woman? And I was like, hey, buddy, I understand what you're saying, but also joke. And again, you can agree or disagree with me on that, but this is the type of shit that led to Bogleach, quote-unquote, disavowing me, is not being sure about certain parts of Gamergate and making a dick joke. Ooh, so terrible.
And he was like, oh, the evil super justice warriors, or whatever they're called, are attacking me. And then, like, everyone was like, hey, bye?
If you could provide links to any of this, that'd be great. Because again, asking for specifics destroys the entire narrative of these people.
Then, like, he got really, like intense about people taking his stuff, like his IP or whatever.
Alright, we got another lie here, but it probably is mostly because of ignorance. My issues with people using my property goes way before this. Like, Bogleach was literally posting on Tumblr and, posting around about the fact that I was having disagreements with people over use of my work. Like, before all of this. So, for you to frame it as Slimebeast had a falling out with Bogleach and then suddenly he went crazy about his IP is really fucking dishonest and disgusting. And it really again shows that you have done absolutely no research in any regard. You have not looked into anything that you're talking about. You heard somebody say it once, and you're just repeating it.
So Mayleet Snick's Fears did like a reading on her YouTube page for Abandoned by Disney a little while ago, and he had a fucking tantrum about it.
God damn, it's very tiring correcting all of your bullshit. What happened was, Nick's Fears made a video about Abandoned by Disney. Now, You might want to know that Nick Spheres is a friend of Nightmind, who I had already had a disagreement with, and that Nightmind, before I had the disagreement with him, was friends with Max Landis, a person who I refused to sell my stories to. Interesting little chain there, isn't it? Anyway, Nick Spheres made a video about Abandoned by Disney, and in the comments, a couple people from Nightmind's community, or whatever you want to call it, that cesspool, were posting about me, saying a bunch of derogatory shit. And I mean outlandish derogatory shit, like you idiots have been saying in this podcast. Republican, Christian, bigot, misogynist, homophobe, blah, blah, blah. And Nick Spheres was egging them on in the comments. Like agreeing with them and saying, tell me more, that type of thing. So I messaged Nick's and I said, hey, here's a clarification about what's going on and what's true and what isn't. Do you think you could moderate the comments a little better and at least not encourage people to be posting things that aren't true? Nick Spheres blocked me from her channel, removed any responses I made to people, made it so that I could not defend myself or correct anything that was being said, and basically goaded me on and said, do something about it. So I did something about it, and had the video taken down. Now, when I had the video taken down, I filled out the form describing the exact issue, saying that this person was encouraging personal attacks in the comments, and had blocked me from even answering it, to even defending myself. I wrote exactly why I was reporting the video. And YouTube took it down after reading that. YouTube is not a bastion of great ideas. They're not a bastion of doing the right thing all the time. But that's what happened, and that's what I did. And I stand by it.
Yeah, he tried to file a DMCA on her about it, and tried to get the video taken down, and was harassing her on Twitter.
Today I learned that if Nick Spheres tweets about me unprovoked, and I respond, that equals harassing her on Twitter.
Creepypasta Wiki also does not have a page for Abandoned by Disney, specifically because Slimebeast requested it be taken down.
Yes. First of all, I didn't post my stories on the wiki, other people did. Second of all, when something is posted on the wiki, it's put up under a license that I did not want on my work. Third, I didn't like the moderation staff of the wiki, which, as it turns out, has included pedophiles and people who talk about murdering other people. I didn't want them in charge of my work. So, there's multiple reasons behind that. Not that you fucking care.
Yeah, because one of his things that I've seen from his defenders is that he is championing the cause of people who want their copyright to be protected.
Listen to yourself. Literally go back in your own podcast and listen to yourself. Listen to the disgust in your voice talking about somebody trying to protect their work. Aren't you an artist or something? I know one of you is an artist because I saw something on Twitter about whatever related to this podcast, and you had commissions up or something. How would you feel about me going and taking your artwork and selling it on t-shirts? You fucking hypocrite. You gross, disgusting, smelly, ugly hypocrite. I don't know what they look like. They probably do smell. I don't know if they're ugly. I take that back. But they do stink.
And blah, blah, blah. And, I'm pretty sure... Okay, so if you go to No Sleep right now, they have a big thing, the first thing that you see on the sidebar of the No Sleep Reddit thread is they have a thing that says, hey, if you want to read a No Sleep that someone has posted, you need to get their permission, or they can file a DMCA, because we protect people's copyright here. I'm pretty sure that exists, probably because of Slimebeast's contribution to the zeitgeist. That is his main contribution, yeah. Other than Abandoned by Disney.
Thank you. I know you're too stupid to realize that's a compliment, but thank you. How do you go from one sentence where you say, oh, Slimebeast's defenders are claiming that he's some champion of creators' rights, how do you go from that sentence immediately to the next sentence where you say, I'm pretty sure that all of this All of this protection of creators' rights is because of Slime Beast. You just confirmed the previous thing that my defenders supposedly said. Is this like those three witches from Macbeth or whatever the fuck it was, except instead of sharing a single eyeball, you pass around a brain cell?
He acts like it's about being like anti-capital, anti-money, like free expression, but he's also like this kind of guy online, you know? Like, if you're anti-capital, you don't really care about copyright, is the thing.
What on fucking earth led you to this conclusion? Nothing I'm doing here is like anti-capitalist or anti-anything. There's no political motivation behind the fact that I want to keep my work free. I just would prefer that people don't use my work to line their pockets. They can come up with their own work, or they can read my story and not charge people. Either through ads or through actual, selling of a book or an audio tape or whatever. How is that anti-capital? Like, I have my own property, and I'd like to keep it. Is that alright with you, dumbass? Is that alright with you? Because it seems like I'm supposed to pass this by you, a random schmuck from somewhere on the internet, before I am allowed to, have my own opinions.
And that sort of like anti-corporate sentiment is what I think he thinks is at the heart of Abandoned by Disney.
Either that, or I wrote a funny story at 2 a.m. and went to bed. One of those two things is probably true.
Oh, I have some thoughts.
But the fact that he is like this right-wing chud who does believe in like copyright, whatever. I'm not going to get into it.
For anybody not paying attention, I want to mention just one more time that these people have never spoken or interacted with me and have not seen anything backing up this claim.
I understand where some of them are coming from, because it is like you're doing the physical labor or whatever of writing and making the story, and someone's coming along and reading it, but the reading is also an art in itself.
Reading someone else's story out loud is not always an art in and of itself. If you're not acting anything out, if you're not putting any emotion into it, if you're blandly and blankly reading what's in front of you, if you don't put any sound effects, if you don't do any editing, if you don't, put music that's appropriate and instead just loop the same Kevin MacLeod song in the background, you're not doing anything artistic. You are, in fact, just a content mill, which is like every other channel on YouTube that just posts up irrelevant random garbage, like Finger Family videos. Actually, Finger Family videos take more creative work than reading someone else's story out loud. So no, you don't just get a pass on saying, reading it is an art too, because it is not always, and probably usually isn't.
It is this deep anxiety that someone is going to make money off of the thing that you posted that you are not making money off of, right?
You don't have to classify it as a deep anxiety in order to color it the way you want. In other words, you're stating this in a way that is furthering your stupid-ass narrative. It's an anxiety. It's paranoia. It's mentally unwell to act like this. Again, I would ask you, do you want me selling your artwork?
It's like, by having your own website where you post your own thing and saying, like, don't read my thing, it's like, fine, whatever. But you are not creating that opportunity for other people if you care so much about other writers, you know?
Yeah.
It's not my responsibility to create opportunities for other people. Especially not through my own free work. Second, what opportunities are created for writers by me letting people monetize readings of my work? You don't make any sense. It's word salad at this point.
And, like, we should normalize people getting paid for
their stories, yeah.
Stuff that they, yeah.
Well, are you for what I've been doing, or are you against what I've been doing? Because you keep going back and forth, and frankly, it's funny.
But also, like, people who have, like, 10k followers on fucking YouTube are not going to be able to pay for that.
Yes, they can, actually, because believe it or not, anyone who has the time to make the videos necessary to build their channel to 10,000 subscribers probably has another means of revenue that they're bringing in. So if you can pay for a Netflix subscription, if you can pay for a chai latte, then you can pay a creator for the work they've done. Alternately, you can put the video up without monetizing it, which is what is allowed with all of my stories. If you want to read one, go ahead and do it. Just don't put the monetization on, or you're going to get in trouble.
You are going to get back the stuff that you perceive that other people are taking from you by not being a massive douchebag.
Ladies and gentlemen, these dumb fucking Neanderthals just invented getting paid in exposure. That's right. All on their own, they came up with the idea of paying a creator with exposure. Something absolutely nobody likes, except for the creators who exploit it.
It's like, hey, you can say, like, hey, you didn't have permission for this. Please don't do it. That's normal. But the reaction of being like, I am persecuted, and I'm crusading against this. That's when it gets to be like, oh, you have, like, something's just wrong with you.
There's actually something very deeply wrong with you, because I have never said anything like that at all. And, in fact, when I find somebody who has monetized my work without permission, I drop a comment on the video saying, "Hi, I'm the creator of this story. It's released under an NC by SA license. Could you please remove monetization?" If they refuse to, or if they delete the comment, or if they reply with something like, "No," then I just DMCA the video. So I am doing exactly what you have said, being polite about it. You go an extra step and you just start making shit up, though. Oh well. You suck. And are awful.
Like, that's the ultimate problem with what Slime Beast is doing, is because he comes at it from the angle of being persecuted, which, like, I feel like you can feel that persecution complex running all through Abandoned by Disney when you're reading it in 2020 fucking 2, like we are doing right now.
So let me get this straight, dipshit. Before anybody narrated the story, because it wasn't written yet, I sat down and decided to write a story about how, in the future, I would be quote-unquote persecuted by people reading the story I was writing on their YouTube. Oh my god. Holy fuck, dude. Your head is so far up your ass.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Like, the thing about the story itself, and Michael, I don't know whether you agree with this or not, but, like, I think Wednesday and I, we both sort of take the, like, have the opinion that, like, there's not a lot going on in the text itself. Like, it feels kind of empty.
It is belabored, it is empty but belabored, and, like, okay.
So the story is both belabored and empty, so it is too full of content and also has no content. Cool. Jesus fucking Christ.
Can I just raise one of my, like, extremely minor quibbles with
Yes.
Abandoned by Disney?
Yes, absolutely.
So, in the text of Abandoned by Disney, and just I think this is a good example, there's a bit where the narrator comes face to face with a giant snake.
Alright, I'm going to cut this off there, because you all know where this is going. Everybody who has seen bad creepypasta and thinks that they can pass off bad creepypasta's comments as their own says, "There's no such thing as a snake that big." Holy Christ, you're ready to read a story about supernatural stuff. A creepypasta, if you will. But you're going to have a problem with one of the supernatural elements. You're not having a problem with the meat hooks that swing back and forth on their own, as if someone or something were attached to them that you can't see. You're not having a problem with the phantom voices in the building. You're not having a problem with the fact that the water and power are still running despite the fact that would never happen. You're not going to have a problem with inverted Mickey. All of that is fine. All of that can just be, supernatural, and that's okay. But by God, if a snake is too long, that's too much. You're stupid. It's so stupid. And, fine. You don't have to like that part of the story. You don't have to like any part of the story. But my God, is it tiring hearing everybody repeat what they heard someone else say over and over and over again. My God, there can never be a supernatural snake. That just is not. That's beyond belief. My immersion was broken once a snake was too long. Christ.
Yeah, everything is huge. Everything is enormous. Like, it's not simply a 30-foot exotic snake. It's not a 25-foot exotic snake that's clearly not native to North Carolina. Like, for some reason, he's gone with, like, a basilisk-sized snake that Disney's been hiding in Carolina that no one knows about.
All right, let's write your version of the story since you guys are clearly superior authors. Here we go. I sat in front of the snake statue and watched as it unraveled itself and crawled across the ground. It hadn't been a statue at all. It was a real python, and it was average size.
Also, the snake, like, everything is attacking. Everything is, like dangerous and looming and stuff.
The snake never attacks anyone or anything and actually moves away from the human being, much like a snake actually would in real life, presumably due to just, primordial fear, like natural fear of something unknown or an unknown person, coming toward it. Nothing in the story attacks anyone at all, ever. So the fact that you say everything in the story is attacking and, so on and so forth, it makes me wonder if you read the story at all or if you listened to somebody else talk about it. Now, I know that can be, kind of gatekeepy, but you literally are saying things now that aren't in the text. And what other conclusion is there to draw?
At the most generous, I might say, he exaggerates the size of the snake to be 80 foot because there is something unnatural going on here. Except for the fact that, he leaves all of the actual big, supernatural stuff for, the money shot at the end with inverted Mickey.
The story starts out with small things like voices or moving objects, things that could be easily explained as something else. It moves on to a abnormally large creature, and then moves on to a completely inexplicable, strange, stupid, photo-negative mascot. It's called building up to the end of the story, to the climax. It's called taking your time and not starting out with something completely outlandish and over the top so that there's nothing special to build up to. It's a simple story structure, and I'm not sure how you're not aware of that.
Hey, okay. Do you think, in his mind, that Disney in this situation represents immigrants?
Wait, what?
I think Disney is Jews.
Wait, what?
So, in this man's mind, the idea of Disney is somehow, an invasive force. You fill in the racist blanks.
No, actually, don't fill in the quote-unquote racist blanks, because you're presuming something that is so completely outlandish and ridiculous simply because you don't like somebody. I cannot believe it. This is actually beyond the pale in terms of just how evil and disgusting you guys are being. Completely disgusting, completely evil. And I don't usually reduce things down to, good or evil, but this is completely evil. This is fucking sick. To say that Disney, a corporation run by somebody who was alleged to be an anti-Semite, alleged to be a racist, and I say alleged because I don't want to get sued by Disney, to say that that is representative of the Jewish people, or of, migrant, non-white people, I would assume, it just is so fucking batshit insane. Disney is representative in this story of a corporation. A corporation who has done literally everything in this story except for the supernatural shit. A corporation that has come to communities such as Baker's Bay in the Bahamas, such as other locations throughout the world, and come into communities, terraformed it into like a fucking dreamscape of their own design, and, in a lot of cases has left communities worse. Which, again, if you've read the story, and if you've read the article about it that I referenced in the story, they placed blame for the resort not working on the local workers by saying that the locals were too lazy to work, which is fucking racist. So I take a corporation that has abused people, and I say, gee, I wonder how that would look if this corporation came in and abused just this, white bread southern, redneck neighborhood. And I say neighborhood, but it's more like a, larger locale than that, but you get the idea. And because I try to explore this idea of what would happen if Whitey got it, would people be extra mad? Do people get it now, how Disney coming into a location and just doing this is a bad thing? Because I do that, you try to make it anti-Semitic for no fucking reason, you psychopaths.
People in the story are offended, like, xenophobia, but, like, they're not offended that it's super duper racist. They're like, oh, how dare you bring this thing into our world, and they're also correct in their fear.
Hey, it's almost like you can write a story with two bad groups of people in it. Xenophobic people and a corporation. It's almost like neither one has to be right in the end. I mean, your thinking is very simplistic, that one of these two groups must be correct.
Yeah, like he puts scare quotes. He puts scare quotes around xenophobic when he's talking about the attitudes of the local people, as though like xenophobia is not real.
First of all, there's a lot of punctuation in my early stories that doesn't belong there. I learned as I went. Secondly, they're not really being xenophobic in the traditional sense because all of the workers at the park would presumably be from their location. Disney isn't shipping in people from India to staff Mowgli's Palace, the resort in the story. So, you can chalk it up to inappropriate use of punctuation, which is rife throughout the story, and you've just picked out this one because you're cherry-picking and it suits your stupid narrative. But yeah, the reason for that inappropriate quotation mark usage is because they're not really dealing with people who are different from them. Other than the Disney executives, everybody working at this park would presumably be from their area.
And the idea that the thing that they have a problem with is that Disney is creating this, like, for want of a better word, like, ethnic-themed park, and not the fact that, according to the text itself, Disney is being kind of racist about its portrayal of Indian culture in this alleged theme park.
How is it a fucking problem that a group of people in the story are offended by the wrong thing? How is that a fucking problem? What is your ideal story, and which episode of Paw Patrol is it?
Another thing I have written down in my notes is, like, what do you think he meant by echo chamber in this moment?
What do you mean?
Like, he uses, like, echo chamber has, like, a certain, like,
Yeah.
level of meaning. Yeah. And, like, he uses it again in the story of, like, everything is stripped down, so it's an echo chamber.
This story was written in 2012, before the term echo chamber became widely popularized as meaning a group of people with similar ideologies. In this story, an echo chamber literally means that it is a large chamber full of echoes. It is to give the reader an idea of what to picture when they picture the location in the story. How is this escaping your grasp? How do you not have any idea of how stories work at all? Why are you running a review podcast for something you do not understand in any regard?
And by the way, he does this thing I said earlier was, like, a pet peeve of mine, where he, like, describes his footsteps as, like, machine guns in this echo chamber room. Like, what the fuck does that mean? It means nothing here.
It means they were abnormally loud. Dipshit.
And also, he says bidets in the ladies' room. Like, that's really not American. Is he like...
Jesus fucking Christ, you guys are really reaching, aren't you? Google Disney bidet. You're going to get on the watch list, I think, but Google Disney bidet. And look at the results that come up for resorts and suites and, special areas, Disney properties that provide bidets. Like, it literally is a thing that actually fucking exists, and you guys are arguing against reality, but then again, that's the thing you like to do. You like to argue against the real world and reality and make up your own. That's whatever. It must be a fun pastime. I guess I shouldn't knock it till I tried it.
Like the alien nature of a woman.
Okay, as if Slime Beast has ever gone into a woman's restroom.
Oh, okay, I was sure you were giving him too much credit.
Why do you think it's an insult to say that I've never gone into the women's room? Also, I've gone into the women's room. I used to work at a state park, which meant cleaning out the bathrooms, and frankly, ladies, you guys are disgusting. I know what you do. It's fucking horrific.
In what world is there a bidet in the ladies' room?
Earth.
And in what world does Disney suddenly start calling their characters mascots? Like,
already dealt with in the following stories. Boring points, nothing new, unoriginal.
And he makes such a point of saying, like, you can look this up, it's a fact. In this really, like, insufferable, forum poster way.
That's because it was posted on a forum. You see how that works? And one common trope of creepypasta, at least originally, was to try to trick readers into thinking it was real. And while I never really tried to actually make people think that my stories are real, the ways that you write things often follows that method. So you write a story as if it were a forum post. You write a story as if it were this, as if it were that, to make it seem more authentic. So yeah, the story written on a forum is written like an average forum post. By the way, it's worth noting that the entire reason I wrote Abandoned by Disney was because there was a separate forum post where it asked you to write like a 2-sentence creepypasta, and in that forum thread I wrote, beneath Disney World there is a photo-negative Mickey Mouse who pulls off his head to reveal yellow blood. And then for the second sentence I added, also Goofy has his dick out. So that's the inspiration for Abandoned by Disney. A story written at 2 a.m. based on a joke that everybody treats as if it is super fucking serious, including these 3 weirdos. Get over it. It's a funny story on the internet. Holy fucking shit. Somebody gave you free ice cream. You don't have to like it, you don't have to eat it, but Jesus Christ, stop complaining.
Disney's a horrible, abusive company. Like, they are an active colonizing force in the real world today.
And yet when I try to point that out, you say I'm writing about the Jews. I don't understand your method of thought.
And, like, this is from a person with, not great beliefs and stuff.
Might as well say it again. These people have never spoken to me, never met me, don't know anything they're talking about, and have nothing to reference to back up their point.
Part of the problem with Disney horror is that it is inherently trying to separate yourself and fictionalize the actual real-world atrocities that a real-life company in the real world is doing by saying, like, well, what if the thing that made Disney scary is that they are making genetic abominations in a lab, and not the fact that they are, like, a vicious, union-busting, extremely conservative company.
Duh, it's not possible to represent complex real-life issues in simplified ways. Duh.
Irreverence towards the topics they're picking, and then, like,
Yeah.
carry it on as though it had, like, a deeper meaning.
Yeah, because misinformation is just easy to spread.
Alright, guys. Everyone pay attention. We're only allowed to write about the topics this person says we're allowed to write about.
The way he uses words like vandals and looters and, like, the homeless people he, like, drops in all the time in the story, they're all treated like a caste or, like, an identity of person.
That's right, folks. The terms looter, vandal, or homeless person are bigoted. Yeah, folks, I didn't know that. You didn't know that. Nobody knew that except for this person. Saying that a building was looted or vandalized by looters or vandals makes you a bigot. Now, I don't know why this person is assuming that people who steal from a resort would be like a caste or like a social class. I think that speaks... I think that actually possibly speaks to their preconceptions, because I don't think you have to be of any social class to be someone who'd want to, steal something from a Disney resort. But apparently this person thinks that the thieves are all of a certain type.
And these dirty, filthy bums are just, like, sleeping and pissing here. And it's like, well, I don't know, invite them to your home and let them piss. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like...
Go ahead. I mean, I know you haven't, and I know you never will, and I know you never would, but go ahead.
You hear them, and then it's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, spooky, scary, what are those people up to? Like, the same thing you're doing, dude. Like, it's not...
Yeah, like the attitude that, like, oh, because you heard some people, like, sort of shuffling around at the building, it's like, oh, this is so scary, like, I'm gonna get stabbed. Like, why? Why would you get stabbed?
Okay, these three have never been out of the house. Why would you ever get stabbed? Why would another human being ever stab you? Why would somebody living in an abandoned building ever stab you? Oh my god. Do me a favor, all three of you. Don't go outside. I just find it funny that they are stretching so hard to paint me as like a bigot, that they're like, why would a homeless person ever do anything out of the ordinary? Fucking Jesus Christ, how disingenuous.
Just on a related note to your previous point, though, about how there's been other creepypastas set in Disney parks, I just want to cite here the River Country film, which is a creepypasta that was allegedly first posted in 2012, which means that it would have predated Abandoned by Disney by a few months.
Nope, Abandoned by Disney was written in 2012. Again, zero research. Just saying random things.
Do you think Slime Beast ripped off River Country film?
Oh my god, we have to read it. We have to read it, guys.
Listen to how excited they are to try to find that I've ripped off somebody else. There's like sheer joy in their voices. Do you think this? Oh my god, we gotta find out. And what do you want to bet that no matter what the case is in reality, once they're done reading it, they're gonna decide, yes, he did. The stories are nothing alike. But yes.
That's the thing. Inverted Mickey is the thing that made Abandoned by Disney take off. Because without Inverted Mickey, there is no point to reading Abandoned by Disney, because the writing is bad and it's empty.
Quite the opposite. In fact, the majority of people who have ever contacted me, the vast majority about Abandoned by Disney, and the vast majority of people who have discussed the story in reviews, have said that they like the story until photo-negative Mickey shows up, and they say that ruins the story. So, the vast majority of people have said the exact counter-opposite of what you just said here. Now, it's not meaning that everybody else is right and you're wrong. It's not like an appeal to popularity kind of thing. They could be wrong and you could be right. However, who gives a shit what you think? Boom. Mic drop.
Yeah, like when people talk about like the mascot monsters in general, the thing that makes that scary is like, oh, like what if this thing that looks innocent and normal actually has like a fucked up creature inside of it?
Wrong again. I don't know. Have you ever been right about anything in your fucking life? But yeah, no, it's not about the fact that it looks sweet and innocent. It's about the fact that animatronics and costumed mascots and things like that look uncanny. Similar to human, but not human, triggering an impulse in your brain that says, run the fuck away. Five Nights at Freddy's, that capitalized very much on like the Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, which move in a janky manner, simulate being alive, simulate humanity, but your brain knows something is wrong. When you're a child, you pick up on shit like that, and stuff can really freak you the fuck out. So when it comes to costumed characters, costumed mascots, animatronic shit, toys, like these fucking haunted doll movies and shit, it's not so much the fact that it's supposed to be sweet and innocent, it's the fact that it's uncanny and disturbing, and everybody knows that childhood fear of something being uncanny and disturbing. Maybe not you guys, because you have never been outside.
And that is the fundamental problem with the inverted Mickey, because it is try-hard. It is saying, like, ooh, look, it's inverted colors.
Again, listen to yourself. Inverted Mickey, negative Mickey, is try-hard because it's inverted colors. What sense does that make? How do those two things go together? Being photo-negative makes it try-hard. The fuck you talking about? What the fuck?
It's also, not to go back to the previous points about copyright, but it's also a way to avoid Disney's copyright.
That's fun, yeah.
Painting Mickey Mouse a different color is not going to help you evade Disney's copyright. The fact that it's a free story posted on a forum that doesn't make me any money and doesn't really do anything, that kind of helps protect, probably. I don't know. Probably could still get sued, who knows?
I have a big thing to say. Pick me. The people who get, like, this is just a big general thing, but people who get, like, famous off of other IPs, then be like, hey, don't do this thing that I did. Yeah. Very, like, Toby Fox getting famous off remixes and then being like, hey, don't use my music for that. Like, hey.
Alright, couple corrections here. First of all, I'm not famous. Next, you say, don't do this thing that I did. I'm trying to stop people from monetizing something I wrote. Where did I monetize something Disney made? Can you provide any example of that? Can you back that up at all? The answer is no. You're letting this stuff fly, dude. You're just, like, saying all this bullshit. You're just getting fast and loose with the truth here.
Slime Beast has a lot of fucking nerve to say, like, these people are trying to make money off of my work and be all self-righteous about it, when he got popular, and, like, the only thing that people care about that he ever did in his life, abandoned by Disney, he got popular because he used Disney to ride off of that.
Oh my fucking god, you are so obsessed with fame. It's fucking sick. It's sad, too, because you obviously resent the fact that I have anything of note that I've done, and you do not. And usually I don't like to think that about people. I think a lot of people say, oh, you're just jealous, like, they just throw that out there. I don't think you're jealous. I think you're mad at the universe because somebody you think is evil did something of note, and you are a bad artist who sucks and gets no interaction with their work.
What he has done is essentially written, like, Disney fanfiction.
So what?
Right?
Yeah.
And he has written fanfiction
So what?
about the Disney Corporation.
So what?
Like the Real World thing.
So what?
He's written fanfiction about it.
So what?
And then has gotten mad that people have possibly had the opportunity to monetize his fanfiction.
There's no possibly about it. It literally has been going on since the very beginning, when people in 2012 and 2013 started monetizing readings of my work. This is the entire basis of everything that's been going on in terms of me battling against people doing that. And again, dumb fuck. What would you think if I took your shitty artwork and printed it on a t-shirt and sold it?
It's really weird, like, the disconnect between, like, people who are like, yes, please read my thing, boost my stuff, this is how people notice my writing.
Again, you're arguing for paying with exposure. Something nobody fucking wants, and something that doesn't bring anybody any actual exposure. It does not work.
And being like, if you read, you're actively making me starve to death. You're killing me.
Oh, cool. Another thing that I've never said, represented as if I've said it. That's really nice. How would it be that a story I wrote for free and posted up for free, how would a reading of that make me starve to death if I'm not charging for it in the first place?
And it's like, hey, I don't know how much Mr. Creepypasta, not to name drop, but I don't know how much Mr. Creepypasta makes.
Oh, maybe I can shed some light on this for you. I hope that giving you real information is okay. You seem to have a distaste for it. But yeah, back in 2013, I believe it was, when I first contacted Mr. Creepypasta and told him to take monetization off of my stories, he said that he only made a few $100s on those stories. Only a few $100s on those stories. Now here's the problem. Those videos had only been up for a short period of time. Imagine if they had been up all these years, since 2013 forward. So yeah, I can shed a little bit of light on there for you. At least a few $100s. So yeah, maybe he could afford to pay some of the creators whose stories he's using.
Like, he can't be making that much money.
I
right?
doubt it, yeah.
Like, he gets a lot of views.
But, like, he doesn't... It's not... Like, I've seen numbers be thrown around, but I think those numbers aren't real.
Like, how much content that he reads is actually able to be like, especially now is able to be monetized with YouTube's, like, fucking draconian system.
It's really telling that their only concern is for the narrator, and they don't give a shit about the creators. Like, poor Mr. Creepypasta trying to make a living on other people's work, and he can barely do it because the YouTube algorithm doesn't pay him as much as it used to. Oh man, it couldn't be more obvious that these people are sycophants.
Even if he makes, like, a killing, like, what does that matter? Like, who cares? Fuck.
Like, even if this guy makes, like, a ton of money off of other people's work that he doesn't have permission to use, like, who cares, am I right?
Real quick, like, not that Mr. Creepypasta, like, I think if he, to be making the amount of money that he makes, which is any money at all, I think he should be doing more editing work than he does.
I absolutely.
Because he still, to this fucking day, will, like, record lines and fuck it up and, like, not edit out the fucked up line. Like man,
girl.
I'm not asking for a lot. I'm asking you to edit out the line that you flubbed when you say the line again. Please.
Why doesn't he do it? Like, I know editing's a lot of work, but that's, like, the easiest thing you can do. I can do it.
Like, hey, like, if you are making money, you can pay an editor.
So not only have these guys exposed themselves as fans of Mr. Creepypasta, and they've exposed why they've made this podcast talking about me, but they also expose the fact that they are currently listening to him, and currently know that he does not edit his work. So yeah, we now know that this is entirely just a hit piece from start to finish. Thanks for completely outing yourselves, guys. Second of all, it's really funny that they're like, why doesn't he just pay an editor? When previously they're like arguing against paying the fucking creators of the stories he reads. The entire reason his channel exists. The only reason his channel exists. And by the way, even though it's not edited and full of flubs, the reading is an art in and of itself.
I mean, because anything that you slap Disney branding on
That's true
will
too.
take off.
That must be why Suicide Mouse and Abandoned by Disney are popular and absolutely no other Disney pastas are at all. Right? I mean, River Country, is, I guess, relatively well known. And, it's not a fact of that I think, Abandoned by Disney deserves to even be popular. It just factually is, with fan games and, all that different shit. I would prefer it was one of my other stories, but whatever.
Right? But I try to more or less, like, not let the views of an author influence my understanding of their work.
Oh my god! All you've done throughout this entire podcast is look at the story through the lens of, quote-unquote, Slimebeast is a bad person. You said that certain things represent migrants and the Jews because of my, quote-unquote, politics, which you have no idea about and have misrepresented. You try to not let your opinion of the author get in the way? That is all you fucking do, you liar.
Too much, but, like, even if I didn't know, like if I knew nothing about Slimebeast,
You legitimately know nothing about Slimebeast.
and I reread this, I feel like it would really stand out to me how much of Abandoned by Disney revolves around this, like, invasion narrative and this sort of preoccupation with
who belongs and who doesn't.
Alright, let's look at how pathetic and lazy your way of thinking is. Slender Man. Okay, Slender Man, a white guy in a suit who abducts children. Why, abducting children, let's see, Pizzagate. A guy in a suit abducting children, Pizzagate. Obviously, he represents the Illuminati. So whoever created Slenderman is a part of QAnon. There we go. Jeff the Killer, a suburban white kid who is beat up by bullies and gets his revenge by killing them. Boy, that just really is just like a school shooter mentality. That is some toxic masculinity right there. Jeff the Killer, obviously written by somebody who felt that the white suburban male was obviously the most persecuted type of person on Earth. You know, like, you can do that with any fucking story. Because you're not actually picking up on any context cues in the story, you're just making things up with a preconceived goal in mind. And as I said, you can do that with literally any form of media. And the fact that you can do it doesn't make it true.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of the core, like, because so little of the story, almost none of the story, is devoted to the actual supernatural scary thing.
That's because the story is setting atmosphere and creating a scenario that builds up to various supernatural things that go in like ascending order in terms of spookiness. Again, basic story structure. I don't know what this idiot expects. You want the opening line to be, I was chased by abandoned by Disney and it killed me and I died. You want that to be like the first sentence, you fucking idiot?
90% of the story...
Yeah, is him assuming that everyone's on the same page and like, oh, that would be scary if that happened to my neighborhood. Oh, that would be scary if there were like invasive animals.
At this point, I should note that I haven't really brought up the fact that these morons are confusing the narrator of a story, a fictional character, with the author. Like, they just will take things that the narrator says or does, and they'll just say, like, I did it, or I said it personally, you know, me as the author. Because they can't separate fiction from reality, surprise. But at this point I should note that the main character of the story is not even from the area that is being quote-unquote invaded by Disney. So, like, there's this overwhelming thing that these guys are putting forward where it's like, the story is like, wouldn't it be scary if this came to your neighborhood and did this to you, and blah blah blah. The main character telling the story isn't even from this fucking place. It's not his home. It's not his place. Why read the story, though? Why read something or understand something before you review it? But then again, this isn't a review, it's a hit piece by people in the Nightmind community.
And it's the persecution complex, right? Because, like, the thing is that, like, if you live in, like, a wealthy white suburb in America, that's not going to happen to your neighborhood.
Okay, so does anybody know where this dumb fuck got the idea that the area where Mowgli's palace was built is a wealthy white suburb? Nowhere in the story does it say that the people in this area are wealthy. Nowhere in the story does it say that all the people in the area are white. Nowhere in the story does it say that this is a suburb. Yet none of that is actually factual to the location. Now, granted, I didn't tell people what the location was. I just said it was near Emerald Isle. You know, which could be anywhere in a big fucking radius. But I didn't tell anybody where it was or what it was like, purposefully. So, to be fair, you could presume that or you could think that. However, to just state it as fact is incorrect. But then again, these people are allergic to facts.
And it's like there's this sort of like government and media conspiracy to like tamp down any kind of protests that are going on around it, which is very much like the sort of Stormfronty, like, I'm being persecuted for being a white, you know?
In fact, nobody tell this dipshit that it doesn't even say the narrator is white. But yeah, oh my god, corporations holding down protest and trying to stop dissent. Wow, corporations trying to stifle people sure is a Stormfront idea. Republicans apparently hate corporations. That's what I'm learning from this dummy.
It's just very, like, it has that same kind of tone to it that you do see in more, like, mask-off narratives about persecution.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, and okay. Like back in the Gamergate days when they were like were blogging each other, the horror artists on the Tumblrs, a lot of people he would say some things and people would blog and be like, hey, this is an example of this and this and this sort of thing that people say in discourse to like act like they're not being tutty. And so it seems like his MO a lot is to tuck it into like agreeable language.
That's a funny way of saying that I try to explain my position. Man, it seems like nobody is allowed to explain their position or talk about anything unless it fits what you want. It's always weird when an absolute empty cipher of a human being somehow has a god complex.
This story was a lot of people's windows into horror to start with. So if you're 15, your parents have taken the child lock off because you're 15 and white in a suburb, and you're reading Abandoned by Disney for the first time, you are getting indoctrinated to this kind of like doublespeak.
Alright, we've progressed the crazy just a little bit further. Abandoned by Disney is now a secret subliminal message to convince 15-year-old white kids to be, I guess, racist, and I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting that everything this person says is filtered through the idea of, white people, white people, white people. Like, if you read Abandoned by Disney at 15, you had to be white. Nobody else has read the story at all. Like, it's psychotic. It is absolutely detached from reality. People of all types, of all stripes, people from everywhere. People, you know what? Fuck it. Abandoned by Disney gets, translated routinely into other languages. There are plenty of South American 15-year-olds who have fucking read or listened to Abandoned by Disney. The fact that you're stepping into conspiracy theory territory so quickly and so easily to say that a creepypasta is secretly subliminal messaging, it just does not bode well. It does not bode well. You need help. You literally need help. And I'm not being sarcastic. I'm not being rude. If this is actually how you think, and you're not just making it up as a lie, to try to, make somebody sound bad, if this is legitimately how you think, you do need to address this before you move on to other conspiracy theories and other wingnut nutjob behavior. Like, legitimately.
It's like this has the same core anxiety to it. Like the sort of slasher movie anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, I live in this nice upper class place, and something evil is going to come to it and destroy that.
Again, I just want to point out that they didn't read the story well enough to realize that the main character does not live in this location. It actually is a big part of the story, discussing, the character going to this location and traveling multiple hours away from home to get there. Just want to point it out. Didn't read the fucking story, or didn't comprehend it, didn't remember it, but, what does it matter? It's only a review podcast.
Like, being able to think about things on different levels, or like one, you have to be willing to look at things on several different, like, textual layers, right? And then you also have to be taught how to do that effectively, which, like, our school system doesn't do.
So here we have the main issue. In one corner you have me, a guy who called himself Slime Beast, who sat up at 2 a.m. and wrote a forum post based on a joke that he thought was funny, and just kind of wrote whatever came to mind as the story progressed. And then in the other corner you have this person, a fart-huffing pseudo-intellectual who has no real-world experience, but has heard several things that they want to repeat in order to get good favor from like-minded people. You have this person, you have the other co-host who is constantly seeking validation in everything that they say, always ending things with right, right, am I right? You know, that type of thing. Sort of like a second banana to this main person who is, you know, like I said, seeking their validation. So you've got multiple layers of people trying to find some sort of good feeling and validation from the internet. You've got the main person, the pseudo-intellectual, who is a fan of Nightmind, is a fan of MrCreepypasta, and decided, with or without prompting, I don't know, they've got a lot of talking points here, pre-written, so it almost seems like this is prefab, but let's just assume the best out of this and say that this person decided, I'm going to take down Slime Beast because I'm the only one smart and tough enough to do it. That's what they thought, incorrectly, on both counts. So you've got this person, then you've got the secondary symbiotic person on this show who just echoes what the first person says and, you know, is constantly unsure of themselves. Everything that this person says is, you know, like, and I think this, right? Is that correct? Am I right? And, you know, is just getting that serotonin rush of being told, yes, you are correct. You are good. You're a good little baby. And then you've got this third co-host who is very quiet throughout the entire thing and sounds like the smartest out of the group. And a lot of that intellect is shown through the fact that this third co-host is staying completely quiet and not joining in on a lot of this.
I mean, we have to also just sort of, the elephant in the room on this one is the sort of the anti-intellectual, like, anti-criticism, sort of, like, meme form. You know, like, I'm sure that everyone here and everyone listening to this has heard, you know, maybe the curtains were just fucking blue.
Yeah. My God,
you know.
I wish that the curtains were just fucking blue sometimes, but, like, they're never just blue. There's always something more.
Whoops, I guess I gotta take that back now. The third host is just as much of a pseudo-intellectual as the others, saying that if you disagree with somebody's critical assessment of your work, then you're anti-criticism. Alright, well, damn, I was on your side for a minute there. And then you had to speak up toward the end of the fucking podcast. Yeah, I mean, show me... I've written like 300 fucking stories. Show me this thread in my work that is like Republican or alt-right or whatever in any way. Show me some thread throughout my work. Because what you're doing right now is cherry-picking a story that has absolutely nothing to do with what you're talking about and just inserting your own bullshit into it. You know, if I were trying to write a subliminal message story to indoctrinate people, why the fuck would I do it like this? Why would it be 1 out of 300 stories that I didn't have any idea would get popular? Like, it makes no sense. You guys are nuts.
Hey, I wish that Mickey Mouse was just inverted. I wish that, like,
wish.
that the stupid palm trees and banana trees and coconut trees in Abandoned by Disney are, like, we're just coconut trees. But I know that they're immigrants, you know?
Kid, the list of things that you know couldn't fill a post-it note.
And I mean, can we also just sort of talk about, sort of right after the money shot in Abandoned by Disney, the arc words, like the graffiti arc words of Abandoned by Disney get repeated one last time, except this time it's in the form Abandoned by God, which, like, I'm sure is sort of meant to be interpreted as a statement of, like, see, God has forsaken this place and the demons inhabiting the inverted Mickey suit.
Actually, it's just that somebody was trapped in the room and scratched a message into the wall. But then again, your way is okay too, I guess. I mean, purposefully let people draw their own conclusions from things, but then you drew all these weird ones and I had to step in.
But I mean, are Jews Disney? Or are Jews the corporatized version of another culture that the Disney Corporation are putting into this white community?
Maybe it's just the Disney Corporation doing what it actually does in real life. Maybe.
Or is it both?
That's the thing, like, Jews are Disney, because, okay, in the neo-Nazi mindset. And, disclaimer, I'm not saying that Slime Beast is a neo-Nazi. I'm not saying that he has, like, a private Stormfront account. I'm not saying that he reads Breitbart News. Like, I'm not saying any of that. Like, I'm not saying that.
You really need to fucking grow up. You really are stuck in a high school mentality. You think this is all a fucking game. You're directly implying that I am a neo-Nazi now? Really? I mean, yeah, you're going to hide behind that thing of, I said I wasn't saying that, but come on. You may be a fucking idiot, but not everyone else is. People can see what you're doing. Man, you really are doing wonders for your own theory of persecution by literally persecuting me in your fucking podcast. Like, that is actually what you're doing. And you're talking about how I have this persecution complex because people are blah, 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 and I can't meh, meh, meh. You're literally on your podcast calling me a neo-Nazi. God damn, you are fucking dumb.
Like, the fact that it is so empty, and there's so little going on in it. The fact that we have seen all of this, like, racial subtext, I think speaks very strongly to the fact that there is nothing else that is actually going on.
You could pick up a rock off the side of the road, turn it around in your hands, and find racial subtext, okay? This is like a you problem. This is entirely a you problem. The reason you think the story is empty and devoid of content is because you only are strictly looking for things to attack me on. Because you are a sycophant for the YouTubers who don't like me because they fucked around and they found out. Now you have too.
It's entirely possible that, like the people who actually like the story, we have done fan fiction by reinterpreting Abandoned by Disney as a piece of racial hate fiction, right?
But what if we're not wrong?
Yeah.
We can say the following.
like I don't think we are wrong. I think we might in fact be unfortunately correct. But like,
yes, that's right. People who have made it this far through the video, this person admits that they're making shit up, but then backpedals when they realize that doesn't fit the narrative and says, but I don't think we actually made it up.
The other thing that we sort of need to address is that Disney has a cultural history of as a white company, a white American company, of like corporatizing other people's like a conservative white American company, like corporatizing other people's culture. Like we've like, seen
nonstop.
It like
yeah, that's what I pointed out in Abandoned by Disney. But unfortunately, when I do it, you decide to pretend I didn't, and you try to change the message. It's funny how you're allowed to point it out, but I'm not.
Yeah, like, so the idea that Disney would create this, like, knockoff version of your culture and then sell it back to you, thereby both offending you and offending the white conservatives that are viewing it, is not really that far-fetched.
Wait a minute. Is the third co-host actually trying to steer them back onto, like, some kind of sense of normalcy and sanity? Like, was I right before when I said this was the only smart one here? Is this person just biding their time and agreeing with them every once in a while in order to try to maybe save them from going over the edge? I don't know.
That's what, like, threads it in people's mind is like, oh, this is a reasonable story, because, like, yeah, this happens. Instead of it being, like, a story about things that are egregious to think about other people.
The only thing here that's egregious to think about other people is what you numbskulls think about me. Again, based on nothing other than what someone else at some point probably just told you. You haven't looked into anything, you haven't researched anything, you haven't spoken to me, you haven't looked at any of my other work. You just are, like, assuming that because one person said they don't like me, and gave some bullshit reasons why, you're just assuming that must be the gospel truth. So yeah, you're the one thinking egregious things about other people. The story has absolutely none of the context that you're placing on it. You are, again, projecting, because you are, in fact, an awful human being.
And the fact that, like, Slime Beast is fundamentally politically similar to Disney.
What the absolute fuck do you know about my politics in any regard? You gibbering maniac. You lemur-brained toad. You toad-brained lemur. You variety of other insults. It's just psychotic. Again, I keep using that term, but you actually are unhinged and detached from reality. You know absolutely nothing about me or my politics. And, you could just ask. Do you want to know my voting record? All right, my voting record is John Kerry, Obama, Biden. Very, very Republican. Now, a lot of people would say, just because you voted for those people, in fact, some of those are centrists, or all of them are centrists, that doesn't mean anything, blah, blah, blah. You know what it means? It means I'm not a fucking Republican, you fucking idiot.
That is why, you cannot tell a story about the actual bad things that Disney is doing. That's why there has to be some boogeyman. That's why there has to be some inverted Mickey in the basement that's gonna pop up and rip his head off and scare you so badly.
The story literally begins talking about Disney ravaging an island, calling the locals lazy, abandoning the park, leaving everybody in the lurch, releasing things into the wild that don't belong there. It talks about a lot of things that Disney has actually done that would be considered, I guess, evil or bad. So for you to just put out there that the story doesn't talk about anything actually evil that Disney has done is fucking absurd. And it shows that you either did not read the story, or you were just making shit up in order to try to make me look bad. And again, this all goes back to that persecution complex thing. Hey, maybe stop persecuting.
I can't do a Mickey Mouse voice. It doesn't sound very good.
I believe in you, John.
And I'm not gonna look stupid on the podcast.
Pressure.
Too late. Alright, so let's go back to the beginning of this video, where I basically gave you all of my backstory and lore. Now, the reason I did that was twofold. First of all, you're going to see comments, or you're going to see people talking about this video, and they're going to say, at the beginning of the video, Slimebeast says, I dated a trans person, so that means I can't be homophobic. All that stuff where people discount your real-life experience and undermine who you are as a person by just saying that anything you say is, actually in their favor. I want you guys to watch the comments, and I want you to see if anybody does that. I want you to watch Twitter, see if anybody does that. And I want you to timestamp the end of this video and link it to them, where I call that they're going to do that. Alright, second reason. I gave you, in the beginning of this video, all of my actual inspiration for Abandoned by Disney. Because the people on this podcast have decided that they are just going to make up the reasons and the context behind what I wrote. For what reason? Well, because they like Nightmind and MrCreepypasta. To counter that, I've actually told you pretty much everything in amongst those facts. For example, why would I write about invasive plants in North Carolina? Gee, I wonder if it's the fact that I've been into ecology since I was a fucking teenager, including volunteering for multiple ecologically minded organizations. Why was this story set in North Carolina? Well, that's because that's where I moved to. That's where I experienced culture shock. Now let's see, why could it possibly be placed near Emerald Isle? I wonder where that beach house was. Slimebeast, why do you care so much about invasive animals? Oh gee, I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that I've been basically a big fan of animals since I was a fucking kid. Everything you need to know is right there, and all anybody had to do was ask, but they would prefer not to, because that goes against the fucking narrative. As for why I wrote this story in the first place about Disney, this corporation, no, it doesn't represent Jews. The reason I wrote this is because I saw an article about an abandoned resort and thought it might be a fun idea for a horror story. That one is literally in the story itself at the very beginning. If you had paid any attention at all to anything that you were reading, if you had any sort of brain that could interpret words on a screen, you probably would have picked up on that. It just is insane to me that you would look at a story that says, I saw an article about an abandoned resort and thought that was cool, and completely ignore that and say, no, this is about an abandoned resort because Jews. In closing, you guys are fucking mental. You're a bad representation of the people you're trying to stand for, and I don't know. How do you end a video like this? Enjoy the 15 seconds of fame your podcast got from the person that you hate the most. Because after this, it won't be relevant in any regard. Ever, at any point. At most, you're going to do 3 to 5 episodes. Then the show is going to end when one or more of you quit because you have some kind of infighting. Because you're all lunatics who will probably eat each other just as quickly as you'll cannibalize other creators.